Jai Shri Shri. Manish. Focus kind of. Right. Yashoda biyolo kala davamana param nishamatyanta dodrujya gopya Ladavalana Paramishtamatyantato Drutya Gopya Rodam Tamo Yugma me janta Parambo jayug me na satanka netra Stittai gevam damodaram bhag Kankakanta Itagevam Damodaram Bhaktivedanta Idriksvalilabit Ananda Konde Shagosyam Nimajantam Akyapayantam Idriksvalilabit Ananda Kunde Shagosyam Nimajantam Akyapayantam Sita Keshu Bhaktajitatvam Punape Matastam Statavritti Vande Sita Keshu Bhaktajitatvam Punape Matastam Sita Keshu Bhaktajitatma Puna Prematastam Statavritti Vande Varam Deva Moksham Vadimba Nachanyam Ganeha Varishadapiha Deva Moksham Vadimba Nachanyam Ganeha Varishadapiha Deva Moksham Vadimba Nachanyam Vineha Varishadapiha Varamdeva Mokshama Idam Teva Purnata Gopala Bala Sada me manasya virastam ke manyaye Idam Deva Purnata Gopala Bala Sada me manasya virastam ke Idam Deva Purnata Gopala Bala Sada me Manasya Rastam ke manyaye Edam te mokambojam Atnyanta nilay Vitam kundalai snigdha rakchaischa gopya Rakshascha Gopya. Muhuschumbitam bimba Rakadaramne Manasya virasta malam lakshalabhaye. Muhuschumbitam bimba Rakadaramne Manasya virasta malam lakshalabhaye. Namo Devo Damodar Ananda Vishnu Vasida Prabhu Dukkha Jalabdi Magna. Namo Devo Damodar Ananda Vishnu Namo Devo Damodar Ananda Vishnu Vasida Jalabdi Magna. Namo Devo Damodar Ananda Kripadishti Vishyati Dinam Bhatanu Grihanesha Mama Gyamedakshi Dishyai. Kripadishti Vishyati Kripadishti Vishyati Dinam Bhatanu Grihanesha Mama Gyamedakshi Dishyai. Kuveratmajau Badha Mutyaiva Yadva Vaya Muchitau Bhakti Bhajau Kritau Cha. Kuveratmajau Badha Mutyaiva Yadva Vaya Muchitau Bhakti Bhaja Kritau Cha. Atapema Bhaktim Swakame Prayacha Namokshe Graho Misti Damodareha. Atapema Bhaktim Swakame Prayacha Namokshe Graho Misti Damodareha. Namaste tu damne surabdeti damne vadiyo daraya ta viswasya damne. vaditi damne vadiyo dayayata vishvatya damne namastu damne namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo nantalilaya devaya tobhya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo nantalilaya devaya tobhya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo radhikaya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo radhikaya vadiyai namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo nantalilaya devaya tobhya namo radhikaya vadiyai priyaya namo nantalilaya devaya tobhya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki, Shri Shri Kartik Man ki, Shri Shri Radha Gokula Nand ki, Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Bhagavan ki. His Divine Grace, say Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. So we now have a Bhagavad Gita class which will take us up till 9 o'clock.
To the Supreme Lord, whose form is the embodiment of eternal existence, knowledge and bliss, whose shark-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro, who is beautifully shining in the divine realm of Gokul, who, due to the offense of breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter, and then stealing the butter that was kept hanging from a swing, is quickly running from the wooden grinding mortar in fear of Mother Yashoda. But who has been caught from behind by her, who ran after him with greater speed? To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances.
Seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hand, He is crying and rubbing his eyes again and again with his 2 lotus hands. His eyes are filled with fear, and the necklace of pearls around his neck, which is marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, is shaking because of his quick breathing due to crying. To this Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, whose belly is bound not with ropes, but with his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances.
By such crowded pastimes as this, he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokul in pools of ecstasy, and is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy, and is free from all conception of awe and reverence. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord
O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Balagopal in Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart. But what is the use to me of any other boon besides this?
O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair, tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me.
O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Damodara, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, be pleased upon me. By showering your glance of mercy upon me, deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows, and become visible to my eyes.
O Lord Damodar, just as the 2 sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, were delivered from the curse of Narada and made into great devotees by you in your form as a baby tied with rope to a wooden grinding mortar, in the same way, please give to me your own Prem Bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation.
O Lord Damodar, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord who displays unlimited pastimes.
Jai.
Thursday, nice one there. And there's one spot here, Wednesday.
Hello. this one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to stay for the start, and then I'm going to have to show up and wait for us. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I ask for your blessing so that I can share some of which has been taught to me by the devotees here and by Srila Prabhupada's books. So today we'll be going through Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, which is knowledge of the Absolute, and we'll be focusing on verse 19. So before I begin, I'll just do some quick invocation prayers. So please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatiramandasya Gyanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Hamsa Padantikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so I'm just going to recite the verse in Sanskrit, do the translation, and then read the purport. So, repeat after me. Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Sa Mahatma Sadurlabha Bahunam Janmanam Te Ante Gyanavam Prapadyante Vasudevam Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sadurlabha. I'll just read the word for word. Bahunam, many. Janmanam, repeated births and deaths. Ante, after. Gyanavan, one who is in full knowledge. Mam, unto me. Prabhantyante, surrenders. Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead Krishna. Sarvam, everything. Iti, thus. Sa, that. Mahatma, great soul. Sadurlabha, very rare to see. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So I'll now read the purport. So I'll maybe read just the first paragraph, just because of time. So the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, and that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered souls are very rare. So that was the purport. So in this talk, I'm going to touch on a few things. So firstly, I just wanted to understand this point around why it takes so many births and deaths for us to finally surrender. So look into that. Then I wanted to touch on this topic of what surrender really is, and what a surrendered soul actually looks like, so we can actually measure ourselves against this benchmark to see really how surrendered we are. And then just talk about some of the benefits of actually what it means to surrender and be this great soul, this rare soul, which Krishna talks about. So when I first, got this verse, one of the first things that stood out to me is this point around, such a great soul is very rare. I just thought it was so nice that Krishna actually recognizes our efforts, and from the outset, he actually says that the soul is so great and is actually very rare. So, when we're coming here and dedicating our lives to Krishna, when we're going out there with our bead bags, when we're, all these austerities we're making, Krishna recognizes them. And yeah, we are very rare for, taking on this journey. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm now just going to talk a little bit about this aspect of why it takes us so many births and deaths, as Krishna mentions here. And so, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. So it seems that even once we embark on this spiritual journey, it's not straightforward. It seems like there are different stages of realization, and one of them is, actually there is still some attachment, and we are still going towards impersonalism. But Krishna clearly says that the point that we need to get to is where we know him as the cause of all causes and actually surrender unto him. So, even once we do come onto this path of spiritual life, we've left, we know that there is something beyond us. There's still like a long road to go. And so there's different stages of realization, which I'll touch on. So the first one, maybe at the beginning of spiritual life, one might be not attached, but go this impersonal Brahman. So Brahman refers to the all-pervading aspect of God. So this is his spiritual effulgence. So usually people in this stage of realization, they might say, they might try to connect with this aspect of the universe, this force. They recognize that there's something there, but it's still very impersonal. The second stage is Paramatma, which is the localized supersoul. And so this is the Lord within the heart. So initially, the supersoul can be perceived in many ways. So this could be through memory, through that kind of instinct, our intelligence, inspiration, and perhaps even when we have this kind of exceptional ability. And so that's how people are able to kind of connect with this aspect of the supersoul, which is within the heart. And in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Krishna says, the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So again, he acknowledges that this is there. And then the final stage of realization, this is Bhagavan, and this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And so this is actually recognizing that Krishna is a person. He's the supersoul, and we are parts and parcels of him. So, this is really amazing that in all the Vedic literature, there is so much describing Krishna as this person. So, right now we're celebrating Kartik. So this is celebrating, Krishna as a young child, and we know about his mother and his father. It's acknowledging Krishna and his friends. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see so many descriptions of what Krishna looks like, the color of his hair. We see everything from the detail of the different ornaments he wears, the sharp-shaped earrings, his bangles, his anklets. And then, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we actually understand the Lord's mood, and we see, so we really get to know him, and we actually get to understand him as his personality. And it's only really when we start to understand him as his personality, and this is this final third stage of realization, that we can really be surrendered onto him. So we can see here that it's not a straightforward path, and there are different stages of realization, but ultimately all three stages are non-different from each other. They're just sort of different angles of vision. And, when we finally get to the last stages, then we actually can perceive Krishna, we can see him, we can talk to him. And so it's quite an elevated stage. So, yeah. So obviously that's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect is depending on the approach that we take to go on this spiritual journey, that will also determine how many births and deaths we take. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the earlier chapters, Krishna touches on the different methods. So we have the karmakandas, the jnanis, the yogis, and then finally the best of the best is the bhakti yoga process. So again, the karmis, just touching on it, are the ones who are taking up spiritual life because they want some sort of material benefit. So it can be better health, it can be, wealth, whatever. But again, it's only so much that Krishna will reveal to them because of their mood, their motive, and the reason that they're doing this. Then there's the jnanis, who are the empirical philosophers, and they're trying to realize these truths about spiritual life through sort of intellectualization, through logic, and they put a lot of emphasis on becoming free from material life and liberation. So again, their motive is different. And then we have the yogis, who are trying to reach God through meditation. And then basically, the fourth one is bhakti yoga. So these are people who take this path, and they're basically giving devotional service to God, and they're trying to connect with God through love, through service, and really through channeling their desires and making their will one with God. And it's only then that really God or Krishna reveals himself. So we see in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Krishna says, "To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me." So again, it'll also, the number of births and deaths that we will take will depend on the approach we take. And we see that, bhakti yoga, which is where we're giving devotional service and we're rendering service to God, is the way that Krishna says that we can actually begin to understand him. So, and I also really like this verse that in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which Lord Brahma says, that just kind of gives us an idea. So he says, "My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many, many years." So we see that, the jnanis who might spend many, many births and really trying to understand the Vedas, trying to intellectualize it, trying to bring their logic into it. But like it says, like Lord Brahma says here, they'll be here for many, many years. So really, it's only through selfless service and through love and just that we can really get to know Krishna. So it might seem like, oh, okay, well, gosh, I'm on this journey of spiritual realization, but it looks like I'm going to be here for many, many births, and it can feel a little bit discouraging. But when I was listening a talk by Srila Prabhupada on this very verse, this is what he actually says, which can give us some hope. So he says, "Spiritual realization is not achieved in one birth. If one is fortunate, he can achieve in 1 second. He can achieve in 1 second. So if we take up the surrendering process immediately, then God realization is a business for 1 second. Otherwise, I'll have to go on with this research work for many, 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 many births." So it seems like it doesn't have to be many births and many deaths, whilst that is the common thing. It could take us a second, and all we have to do is surrender. It sounds easy, right? But surrender can be quite difficult. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit about what surrender actually means. So I'm just going to ask maybe one or two people in the audience, what does surrender mean to them? Anyone?
I'd say it means to trust that, it means to trust that actually
Hello.
Yeah. To have complete hope and faith, and to not doubt Krishna. When we have doubt, then we're not surrendering.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So someone said here that it's trust and having no doubt that Krishna will do the right thing for us. Yeah, that's lovely. So basically, when I looked online for Cambridge Dictionary definition, surrender is said to stop fighting and admit defeat. So first of all, like surrender, we have a very contorted version of surrender, right? We think of surrender as being on the losing side of a war, like, okay, you win, I lose. But in spiritual life, surrender is actually really, really beautiful. And we know that also surrendering in material life means that we're often at risk of exploitation. So you can see maybe why this notion of surrendering sounds quite scary, and it's difficult for us. But I wanted to just give a couple of definitions here. So a really nice definition by Mother Krishnanandini says, actually surrender to God is an expression of faith or trust which culminates in love. Surrender means we accept God's words and His instructions coming through His pure servants and the bona fide scriptures. And also in Bhagavad Gita 1866 it says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So in other words, in spiritual life, surrender really means to accept His protection and to accept unconditional love. So contrary to this definition of, okay, I lose, I'm submissive to you, surrender means to accept protection and it means to accept love. So it's actually really quite beautiful. So I just wanted to, because of time, what I'll do is I'll just quickly touch on the 6 divisions of surrender, which are talked about in the scripture. So Srila Prabhupada talks about them and quite a lot, and they're mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But basically, we can think about these 6 divisions of surrender, and we can measure ourselves to see how really surrendered we are, which can help us. So very briefly, I'll just read the six divisions. So the first one is accepting everything which is favorable to serving the Lord. Second, to give up everything unfavorable for serving the Lord. Third, having a firm conviction that only Krishna can protect oneself. Fourth, always accepting Krishna as one's maintainer. 5, having self-surrender, meaning remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. And 6, thinking of oneself as meek and humble. So these are the six divisions of surrender which we can measure ourselves against. So just very briefly touching on them. So the first one is accepting everything favorable to the Lord. So, the stuff which we might know more commonly as, chanting, reading, hearing the scriptures, serving the Vaishnavas, cow protection. But also there's some, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada says in 1.5.22, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. So it's not just about doing sort of these common, the activities which, we're doing here at the temple, but it's about taking anything that we do in our day-to-day lives and offering that to the Lord, making sure, God's in the center of that. So that's what it really means to accept everything favorable to the Lord. So it's not just about accepting favorable things, but it's also about rejecting unfavorable things. Because if in our lives we're still, attached to sort of bad habits and stuff, they can really drag down our consciousness, and they can prevent us from making the progress, no matter how much of the favorable things that we might do. So, giving up of the unfavorable might be the so that obviously the the 4 regulative principles of no meat eating, intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. So, by giving those up, we're also building our compassion, austerity, cleanliness, and truth. But then it's also about giving up the more subtle things, like in Bhagavad Gita 16.21, Krishna says, there are 3 gates leading to this hell, lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, but they lead to the degradation of the soul. So obviously the 4 regulative principles can help us to give up those subtle anarthas, but we also really need to work on them through honest reflection and introspection, and so in that way we can progress. And then I'll just touch on the third and the last one from these 6 surrendered aspects. So this is having firm conviction that only Krishna can protect oneself. So when I was reading more about this, there's this notion of exclusive protection. Only Krishna exclusively can protect. So, sometimes we have this notion, okay, Krishna will take care of it, but we still try and have this insurance policy, like, okay, but just in case, I'll plan for this as well, I'll have this instead. But what this one division is really talking about is having exclusive faith that only Krishna will be one's protection. So a really nice example of this is when Draupadi was being disrobed, when they were pulling her sari. So initially she was holding her sari with one hand and she was calling for Krishna, but that wasn't enough. It was only when she let go of both hands and she said, "Hey Govinda," that was like full surrender, and she knew that was only Krishna now that could save her. So I thought that was just really, really nice, because I think that whilst I personally think, I have conviction that Krishna will protect, I think there's still that subconscious mind where I still try to build in these insurance policies of, oh, just in case, let me do this. But full surrender means to have absolute conviction that, Krishna will be there. So just because of time, I won't go into the other 3. But if you did want to go into more detail, there's a really lovely article by Mother Urmila on Back to Godhead called Devotional Surrender, where she talks about these in a lot more detail, and it's just so fascinating to read, and I think it really helps us to assess where we are in our life to surrender. So just to round off, generally, how can we build towards surrender? As we know, it's through hearing. When we're sleeping, Srila Prabhupada always talks about this analogy where he says, when we're sleeping, we need, sound to wake us up. And so in the same way, we have to keep hearing to wake up our consciousness. And so it's really through hearing and through chanting. And chanting is, of course, really important, but also hearing, because for us to have a desire to go back to the ultimate destination, we need to know what it's like. So again, Srila Prabhupada says that, when we go on vacation, we don't just randomly pick a spot. We pick a spot based on what we've heard of that spot, right? So he says hearing is our first experience. So in that way, we have to hear about where God lives, what God is like, and that way our desire will increase and we'll want to surrender more. So I'll stop there, and I'd like to ask if there's any questions. That's okay. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpatarupasya cha kripasindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. managed to finish on time.